He have some Superbike experience. He raced in the Endurance World Championship at Most at the season closing round this year and actually was pretty competitive on it, but you can see there just gets a bit of a kick from the bike there as it comes to a halt. That's through turn 3, so right at the start of the lap, that little bit of a flip-flop.
Yes, so we were quite rightly cautious there, trying to ascertain whether the number and the name did quite... Just over 30 minutes remaining in free practice 1. It is Koenig who has gone down just on the exit of one of the chicanes by the looks of things.
Yeah, you can see Oliver there. He's in what looks like Cresson's leathers, but certainly it is Oliver that's gone down. You can see there may be an issue for Alvaro Bautista, and we'll see if he's able just to get himself back to the pits at this stage. And certainly for Honda, there was some big news during the gap between Argentina and this weekend with the confirmation of their rider lineup for next year.
Yes, Iker Lecuona and Xavi Vierge will join HRC for 2022 onwards. We already knew that both Leon Haslam and Alvaro Bautista were departing. Bautista departing, frankly, because he wanted to move back to Ducati machinery, on which he was so successful in the 2019 campaign, of course, with that run of victories at the start of the season in particular. And it looks like Leon Haslam, although he appeared keen to stay, was not the first choice. Very different philosophy for HRC at the moment, to try and pull riders across from the MotoGP paddock in a hope of giving themselves an elusive world championship.
Yeah, I was asking Leon Camier about that, the team manager, and he said that they are making that change in philosophy for next year, bringing in 2 young riders. Obviously 2 years spent with Alvaro Bautista and Leon Haslam has brought that package quite a bit forward, but now they want to try and make that next step and making that change of riders. I was asking him, as a rider, because obviously Leon Camier, one of the most experienced riders we ever had in World SBK, I was asking him, as a rider, how is that to make that change? How is it to make that transition? And Camier said, a bike's a bike and you've got to be able to figure out how to get the most from it. Obviously learning the Pirellis is going to be a bit of a struggle for them, but that's going to be the big task. And what we've seen from the likes of we got a crasher there, and it looks like it's Oliver Koenig that's gone down.
So making his debut this weekend in World SBK, Koenig, with just over 30 minutes remaining in free practice 1. It is Koenig who has gone down just on the exit of one of the chicanes by the looks of things.
Yeah, you can see Oliver there. He's in what looks like Cresson's leathers, but certainly it is Oliver that's gone down. He does actually have some Superbike experience. He raced in the Endurance World Championship at Most at the season closing round this year and actually was pretty competitive on it, but you can see there just gets a bit of a kick from the bike there as it comes to a halt. That's through turn 3, so right at the start of the lap, that little bit of a flip-flop.
Yes, so we were quite rightly cautious there, trying to ascertain whether the number and the name didn't quite match up, but we called it. Oliver Koenig then going down. World SBK debut, as we've said, this weekend. And as you said, Steve, as well, looks on paper like a very big step, doesn't it, to go straight from Supersport 300 into World SBK. And he may well find that's the case as well, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real tough task for him all the way through this weekend. There can't really be any level of expectation on Oliver, and his big issue is now going to be trying to get back to the pits, see if he can get that bike back out at the end of this session, because losing a half an hour of track time is really bad for any rider over the course of a race weekend. But if this is the first time you've been in a World SBK machine, it's even more important for Koenig just to be able to get himself back out there.
Just a quick word, Loris Cresson, of course, suffering injuries earlier on in this campaign. Just over 30 minutes remaining in this free practice 1. It's Toprak Razgatlioglu who leads the way by 0.8 of a second ahead of Michael Ruben Rinaldi. Jonathan Ray, third fastest, so the gap has come down between Razgatlioglu and the rest.
Yeah, it's going to come right down now as well, with Rinaldi on a very fast lap here as well. So Toprak's time of 36.5, he's got 0.8 of a second in hand on Rinaldi, but as you'd expect from the Italian, he's going to get faster and faster through the course of this session. This looks like it's going to be right up there as well. Loses a lot of time in that final sector though.
He was up at the halfway mark of his latest lap, so as you say, just that final sector which features the slowest corner on the circuit. I suspect that could be a place for a penultimate bend lunge, not a last bend lunge, but a penultimate bend lunge in towards turn 16.
Yeah, and certainly we're going to see it all the way through this weekend. If anyone's close, that's when they're going to try and make a move in the last lap, because you can really barge down the inside and make that block pass.
Yes, and defend your track position then through the final turn. It's only a short squirt to the line. So it should be action-packed here at the Indonesian round. It's always exciting to come to a new place, and the first for generation really to come to Indonesia. There won't be many in this paddock who were still around in the mid-1990s who had the opportunity to head just outside Jakarta. More straightforward, I suppose, without the extra domestic flights, but not too many that were part of that generation, and certainly not riders. So a completely new start with a new country, but also great to open a new circuit. It leaves us with a completely blank slate, as we've said. Yeah, there's definitely that blank slate for everyone, and there's riders will try and take what they can from different tracks that they've raced at and try and understand it, and certainly you'd want to make sure that you're able to just get yourself up to speed quickly, and what you'll do for that is just work with your engineers. You can see here with Alvaro Bautista and his crew chief Julio, just they'll look to see what changes they need to make to their base setting. First thing they're going to check whenever you get out on track like this is the gearing right for the top speed down in towards turn one, and then you just try and build yourself up all the way through. Yeah, Scott Redding still building himself up. There's a rumble underneath our commentary position as one of the riders, I think Leon Haslam, just makes his way back in now to the pits with just under half an hour still remaining in this free practice one. Razgat Lioglu, your leader, the majority of the actual leaders coming back in now at the end of their first stint. Rinaldi, Ray, Bassani, and the man we can see, Scott Redding, all making their way back into the pits, as well as Isaac Vinales. So the top six now in the standings in free practice one, all back in. Yeah, and we've got 1.4 seconds basically separating the top five, so a little bit of ground to be made up for a lot of riders, but at this stage, nothing really to worry about. Good to see Tom Sykes back in action this weekend, obviously former world champion, and he's had it pretty tough since that crash in Catalonia, but good to see him back in action. Yes, Tom Sykes returning this weekend, had a severe concussion, a big incident for him back in mid-September, so it's been a fair rest. Nice to see the very tropical helmet design that's quite appropriate for these surroundings as well. Yeah, the winter testing helmet for Tom, and gets a last outing, and certainly for Sykes, he's going to be motivated to try and finish strong over the course of this weekend. Still a bit of talk about where he's going to be next year, potentially Motor America or BSB on a Ducati looks like the best options for him, and in all likelihood looks like it's probably going to be a return to Britain for him, but for Tom, this is him signing off for now on the World Championship. He says that he still has ambitions to come back as well in the future, so it'll be interesting to see where Tom does end up. That may well play a part in his decision as to where to go for next season, to try and open himself up a route to return with competitive machinery. I think competitive machinery is the key, because Sykes was, it sounded like, offered a ride with the Bonobo team for next season, something that he didn't appear too keen on, and I think the relationship has ended up being fairly fractious between himself and the BMW late on in 2021. It is good to see Tom Sykes back in the paddock this weekend, having missed 3 rounds in a row. One started to suspect that we might not see him in the remainder of World SBK for 2021. He is back on the grid this weekend. As far as BMW are concerned, though, they've wrapped up the signings of Eugene Laverty and Loris Baz between rounds to ride with that Bonobo outfit, and BMW continuing to insist that the 4 riders will have equal machinery and equal opportunities as far as next season is concerned. Yeah, and it's interesting for BMW to extend and expand their World SBK operation, and certainly Loris Baz showed whenever he came in for 2 rounds in Jerez and Portimao, he's still got that front running pace. So for BMW, they've got themselves lined up with good rider lineup: Van der Mark and Scott Redding on the factory bikes, and then Eugene Laverty and Baz on the satellite team, and that's going to give them a lot of good information, a lot of good data, and hopefully allows them to make that step forward, because what we've seen over the course of this year especially is the BMW can be a good bike in World SBK, but it just needs to make that bit of a step to be a lot more adaptable over the course of a full season. Yes, and a little bit more consistent. I think the 2 of those will come in together. A little bit of a shame actually for Loris Baz to be changing machinery yet again. Yeah, but for Baz, at least his 1 year in America is paid off by getting back onto a World SBK grid, and that's what you've got to do. He actually did a good job in America. I think there was an expectation that he'd go over there and win the championship, but realistically that wasn't going to be an option, because we've seen all the way through the last few years that the Yamaha is a really strong package over there. The Attack Performance team always do a really good job turning out their bikes for Cameron Bobia, Garrett Gerloff in the past, Jake Gagne this year.